Welcome, everybody. My name is Sarah Sims, and I am the manager of continuing education for the Brown School here at Washington University in St. Louis. Thank you all so much for joining us today for our Open Classroom program. Open Classroom is the Brown School's virtual and free professional development series. Beyond Open Classroom, we do offer a plethora of workshops, certificate programs, institutes that all offer continuing education units for social work, and many of them also for public health. If you would like to engage with us in some deeper learning, we invite you to check out our offerings at brownschool.wustl.edu/professional-development, which is posted there. I'll also post that in the chat, or you can use the QR code on the screen. So before we get started, just a couple of very quick housekeeping items. This is a Zoom webinar, which just means that we can't see or hear you, but the chat should be open to everybody. And we hope that you will say hello and also post any questions or comments that you have for our presenters throughout the presentation. Also, we are recording today's program, and it will be posted on our Open Classroom website, which is brownschool.wustl.edu/open-classroom. All right, so let me stop my share. And I'm now going to introduce my colleague, Ali Gillespie, who is the research manager with the study of adolescent lives after migration to America, also known as SALAMA. Ali and the SALAMA team organized today's program, so I'm now going to turn it over to Ali, who will introduce the theme and our moderator and speakers for today. Ali.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome everyone to the fourth session of the SALAMA webinar series. This session is focused on supporting Arabic-speaking adolescents, specifically in the St. Louis region. The study of adolescent lives after migration to America, or SALAMA, is a mixed method study conducted by Washington University in St. Louis with support from Qatar Foundation International, or QFI. Our study seeks to better understand the experiences and psychosocial well-being of in-school adolescents with a focus on immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers from the Middle East and North Africa region who are living in the US. And the purpose of this webinar series is to disseminate our study findings and to engage with educators, practitioners, researchers, and policymakers who are committed to supporting immigrant and refugee student populations. SALAMA is supported by QFI. QFI is an international organization that advances Arabic language education across the world. It currently operates in the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy. And QFI supports Arabic language programs and works to increase access to Arabic instruction for educators and students around the world. So for those of you joining us for the first time, we encourage you to watch our first 3 webinar series sessions, which focused on multilingual learning, programs, and support for mental health and psychosocial well-being. And we have a wonderful panel lined up for today's session. Please note that the panel will share insights and experiences from their work in research, practice, and policy. These views may not represent the entire field of practice, so if you're interested in this topic, we encourage you to do additional research and check out our many resources on our website, which I will link in the chat shortly. But for now, I would like to introduce our wonderful moderator for today, Dr. Trish Kohl. Dr. Kohl's scholarship draws upon several years of clinical social work practice with children and parents in low-resource communities. Dr. Kohl's work is focused on the development, testing, and implementation of interventions to promote the emotional development of young children, treat early childhood emotional and behavioral problems, and prevent child maltreatment. With a particular focus on families facing adversity, Dr. Kohl has carried out this work with diverse populations within a broad range of service settings, locally, nationally, and globally. She has received funding from the National Institute of Mental Health, National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Administration for Children and Families, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Dr. Kohl holds a joint appointment as the Research Director of the Hermann Center for Child and Family Development in the Division for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at the Washington University Medical School. And the Hermann Center aims to advance the science on early childhood mental health to improve child and family outcomes prenatally through age 7. Dr. Kohl teaches policy and practice courses at the Brown School's Children, Youth, and Family Concentration. Welcome, Dr. Kohl, and thank you so much for moderating our panel today. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Allie, I should have had you shorten that that blurb, but thank you. And I am so pleased to have been asked to moderate this panel on such an important topic. And as I'm sure all of you are, I'm looking forward to hearing our panelists' discussion on approaches to support Arabic-speaking adolescents. And so let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. Sarah Rangwala is a St. Louis native. She completed her undergraduate degree at Washington University in St. Louis and received her Master's of Art in Teaching from Boston University. She has taught high school Arabic for the past 10 years in Baltimore, Boston, and SLPS. She also works as a consultant for Qatar Foundation International and supports K-12 Arabic teachers throughout the world with innovative approaches to language teaching. Rob Greenhaw provides consultation to schools that are working to implement high-quality, comprehensive, and collaborative educational programs for English learners. He conducts professional development workshops that focus on providing practical strategies to instruct and assess EL students at all levels across all content areas. Rob has 14 years educational experience in a variety of roles, including Spanish, elementary, and EL teacher, as well as EL program coordinator. Rob is passionate about working with teachers to help them feel confident in their ability to meet the needs of their English learner students who he believes can not only meet grade level standards, but exceed them. Shatha Alshati is the director of Resettlement at International Institute of St. Louis. She has 11 years of service with the Resettlement Department. She graduated with an electrical engineering degree from Baghdad University. Shatha is married and has 3 children and 1 grandson. She left Iraq when the situation in Iraq became unsafe to live and arrived as a refugee to the United States many years ago. After receiving childcare, resettlement, and placement, and MG program certificates, she started working with the International Institute to help others get resettled and start their new life in the United States. Michael Ramsey began working with refugees when he moved to St. Louis in 2007. For 5 years, he worked as a music director at a church facilitating cultural collaboration with refugee musicians in 8 to 10 different languages. In partnership with a refugee musician from Congo, Michael launched Revival School in 2011 as a program to encourage the creative gifts of refugee youth. In 2018, Revival School St. Louis became a nonprofit organization with the mission to empower refugee students by fostering their creativity, by connecting them to resources, and by giving them a stage to share their home culture, and by building a collaborative community. In partnership with Intersect Arts Center, Revival School launched a recording studio called Revival School Records in 2021, as well as a fashion collaborative called Revival Runway. Michael has 2 creative children named Leo, 26, and Isabel, 23. He lives near Tower Grove Park with his wife of 31 years, Vera, and his cattle dog of 3 years, Maybe. Okay, so next I'm going to ask several questions to each of the panelists, and I'll ask questions for a while, and then we will open it up to the audience for questions before we're done today. Okay, so the first question is for Shatha and Sarah. Arabic-speaking adolescents who arrive to St. Louis as immigrants or refugees may face unique challenges in their communities and schools. What should educators and other practitioners know about these challenges, and what are the most important supports for these students and families during their first few months living in St. Louis? And Shatha, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Kohl. So as a resettlement director. I've been working with the families in general and their children when they arrive to United States, and we've been facing several challenges that the teenagers facing here when they start schooling in general, and then when they attending and when they trying to be friends to the neighborhoods or to other kids. So one of these challenges actually that we have been facing is how to deal with the other children at the same age of their children. The culture is different, their traditions is different, the way they dress is different. So all this type of traditions and community dress and all this culture things that they have been learned through their life overseas is completely different here. So the first thing, they need to be educated, these children in general, about this is a different cultures that need to be addressed, that they don't need actually to lose that what they learned from their own traditions and what they gained from their parents and what they know through or during their past life in their countries, in different countries they came through. All what they need to know, how to address the new culture and how to work with these children to be living here, same as any other kids here. So we need to be close to them. We need to have activities with them that can help them together grow up here and have friends and going to school to have their education here again. We had a few of challenges that come to our attention through their family, that the kids after they will arrive here unable to make friends or be communicating with others because they don't speak their language or they dress differently, which we need to be actually active, and we need to be in like challenges, and we need to be active with them how to solve these issues.
Thank you. Sarah?
I agree with everything that Shatha said, but I wanted to add, I think, a little bit more specifics that I think sometimes it's hard for people who've grown up in a majority culture to understand how anxiety producing simple tasks might be that appear simple to us for people who are not, who have not grown up in this culture, especially if they don't speak the language confidently or comfortably. So exactly what she said, but even just saying hi or even sitting next to somebody they don't know or anything when everything around you is completely different. And I think it's important for adults who are working with refugee children or children who have come here as immigrants, who are not as comfortable with this culture as we are, to keep that in the back of their mind, that even things that seem really casual and simple to us are things that maybe they're overthinking or trying to understand how they work in this culture. And then I think for children in particular, something I've noticed working with children from different countries is that if they've grown up in this culture and their parents haven't, sometimes what's lacking in their life is an adult or adults that they feel like they can communicate with. Because what I've been told, and obviously this is just in my experience and from children that I've talked to, it's not necessarily everybody, but I've been told is that parents who are coming here, obviously are going through their own struggles, trying to understand the culture from their lens as well, and trying to also reconcile the same thing, keeping their culture and their traditions and what they've grown up with, as well as figuring out how to navigate this culture. And so sometimes children don't feel like they can talk to their parents about a number of things. So if you're an adult working with children in this capacity, listening is really important, and also being very conscious of creating an environment in which they can be a little bit more open, because sometimes they don't feel like they can do that at home for whatever reason, around whatever topic.
Thank you, Sarah. Before we move on to the next question, Rob or Michael, anything to add?
No, I agree with what both of them said.
Okay,
Yeah, I think just on what Sarah just said, we really started Revival School to come alongside this generation of youth that are really, they're experiencing a lot of role reversal because they're learning English first and their parents depend on them for everything, you know. So it's like these children are being asked to make adult decisions and have all these adult pressures at a very young age. And so yeah, that was one of the reasons we started Revival School, was just to try to help, just try to walk alongside some of these guys as they navigate all the, you know, reading the mail, like translating at the bank or the hospital, teaching their parents how to drive, all the role reversal that happens and navigating all the new things. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so the next question, and we'll go ahead and start with Rob and then Michael. Tell me about a time in your work with adolescents when a student you were working with in St. Louis had a breakthrough related to their language or cultural expression. Rob, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. So I work as a consultant and professional development person. So I'm not working with students directly very often. Last year I had a English language development specialist reach out to me about I think it was a 7th grade refugee from Ukraine. So it was actually a Ukrainian refugee. And they had done some language screening. They kind of had come to the conclusion that he had studied English and had some ability in English. But what they were seeing both in the general education classroom and in sort of a pull-out small group setting, and even on a one-on-one setting, was the student just hesitant to participate, hesitant to engage with peers, seemed withdrawn, not motivated. And so basically they kind of asked me like if I had any ideas. I talked with the English language development specialist at this particular school about, in a small group setting or even in a one-on-one setting, kind of trying to basically identify what are some interests that the student has. And so, you know, whatever your sort of scripted curricular program is, let's put that on hold for now and just kind of identify like what is it that the student does care about or is interested in. And so it had come up that the student is interested in soccer and is playing soccer at recess and or gym class, I guess. And so we kind of were like, well, look, let's get a variety of books on soccer or football, and kind of you know, learn about soccer together. And then the idea was to co-create a text together about soccer. So basically, first, let's build up some background knowledge about this particular topic. You seem to be interested in this sport. What do we know about this sport? And then once we felt like we had kind of identified some words, kind of co-creating a text with the student. And this is an important strategy for students who are new to English, basically trying to take as much of their language, of their words, and helping them put it into sort of maybe simple sentences. So basically the teacher is sort of scribing as the student is sort of telling them about what they know about soccer. Sometimes for students of lower English proficiency, you might need some type of translator, interpreter, or maybe even a translation tool. But to the most extent possible, you want to use the student's language rather than giving them words. And then what you do from there is kind of use this text that you created with the student as sort of your instructional text. So throughout the week, we're then reading and rereading our text together and identifying ways that we might add details, or what are some words we maybe don't understand, or what's a better word we might want to use. So basically, we're gonna pick a topic that the student really cares about. We're gonna learn about that topic together. We're gonna help write with the student, what do we know about this topic? And then we're gonna use this text we created together as instructional material. I thought what was really the breakthrough was the next part was he identified that he wanted to attend a St. Louis FC game. So in St. Louis, we have a professional soccer team that's kind of new to the area. And somehow he had learned about this soccer team and wanted to attend a game. And so they turned it into, well, maybe we could write a letter to St. Louis FC and tell them about who you are and why you want to attend a game. And so the student was just, the motivation switched a whole lot when it was like he got to kind of choose what we were learning about, what we were writing about. And then he sort of had this compelling need for output and sort of an authentic task of writing a letter to this organization in hopes of attending a professional soccer game. So it just was, from what I heard back from the teacher after communicating initially, was just that the motivation really sort of spiraled in a really good way, where it grew and grew with basically, how can we identify what students are interested in and then sort of leverage them or springboard from those sort of topics into reasons to learn English literacy, I guess. I guess that's sort of my story.
Thanks, Rob. Michael?
Yeah, my story is also about a 7th grader from East Africa, and I sort of was there when her family came and was already connected to their people group. And so just very early on, and her father had, 6 daughters, really. So she's the youngest, started in 7th grade at the Nahed Chapman School. She was fluent in 3 other languages when she arrived in St. Louis. So she's studying English as her 4th language in 7th grade. And about halfway through the year, so this is like 4 months of learning English, she wrote a poem, and her teachers thought it was so good that they sent it to this contest of like the best poems of 7th graders in the United States. And it was published in a book of some of the best poems of 7th graders. So if you can imagine like the genius of this girl to be able to write something in English, in her 4th language that she'd only been learning for 4 months, and have it be published, it was a big deal. So I think when I recognized that, or I heard about that, it was really through asking some questions about what was going on. And then I saw the book that they had given her. But I've been sort of helping with her education since then. And so they were about to send her to a neighborhood school that didn't have really a lot of creative, I guess, opportunities for someone like that. And so I started taking her with my kids to Grand Center Arts Academy, and then she got involved there and started dancing, learning ballet, and then she really also expressed an interest in fashion. And so just walking with her over the last, how many years is this? I guess 8 years now. She's I think at every step, the Grand Center Arts Academy didn't have a lot of ELL support, but she was so smart that she was able to, if she was struggling at the beginning of the semester, by the end of the year, she was getting everything the teacher was saying. So I think it was just like walking with her through those challenges, and then I helped her. Her grades were so good that we were able to help her apply for a WashU, and so she got a full ride to WashU. She started 2 years ago, but actually last year at the I guess the second half of her sophomore year, she decided to in psychology. Yeah. So there's so much new vocabulary. Like every time a student decides they're going to, basically study a new subject or explore something like that, there's just so much new vocabulary. It can be overwhelming. So she had taken like 3 psychology classes in one semester, and she failed a couple of them, and they asked her to take a semester off. So she's on an academic probation right now, but she was like, that's not going to stop me. I'm going to go to Forest Park and I'm going to take these classes that I need for my new major, which is French and entrepreneurship. She's going to do like business, so French and business. Anyway, so she's still working hard, and nothing's like gonna stop this girl. But it's been interesting to just, I think what these kids need more than anything is to read, is just to always be reading during the summers. And so I'm always throwing books at them that they might enjoy, because they just have to, a lot of them, when they take the summer off and they're not even hearing English at home, they're only speaking their language, they move backwards and they forget vocabulary. And so just to equip them for what's coming next, I would say, get them a library card, get them in the public libraries, get them finding things that they love to read, that they'll be motivated to read, that are challenging. So just continue to build the vocabulary. Yeah.
Thank you both. And now to, those were great stories. And to keep us on, Allie gave us a really clear timeline. I want to go ahead and move on to the next question. And Shatha and Michael, I'll call on you to answer these, please. Please. Supporting newcomer students in St. Louis is important, both inside and outside the classroom. Could you share a bit about opportunities for Arabic-speaking adolescents to engage in cultural activities or community building in St. Louis? Shatha?
Thank you. So I can share the experience that I have been active with new arrivals in general, about their family and also the children. So we have here in St. Louis area, we have Arabic Center that actually coming to us with the questions, and I am one of the member leader in that Arabic Center, community center. So for these students who's facing like a different type of challenges inside of their family and outside of their family. So if the challenges was inside the family, that maybe the family or the parents in general asking the children to like interpreter for them through the phone calls or questions, or when they go to basically shopping, like the grocery stores. So this is just sometimes too much on children to handle, since they are not adults and they are not understanding why their parents doesn't want to speak. Even if they don't know, they can try. We need to educate the family. We need to educate and work with the family together to make them understand what the teenagers or what the adolescents facing here, to be aware of the challenges. So this is the challenges that we work with the family through, like out of the International Institute. The family that coming and we enroll them in a school like their children in school age and we enroll them in school, they will need in activities after school hours that can support them. So for example, we have some activities to support the children after school. So for example, we have at the International Institute a teen summer learning program that was during the summertime. So we pick up the children school age and do some activities, learning activities with them, and provide them information, explain to them the cultures here in general. And also we have after school program that also providing to the adolescents between age 14 to 22. So we pick them up after the school hours and then we bring them to the institute to have them finish or completing their homework with one of the volunteers. So we provide that type of programs for them, which is based on what they need and what they are looking for. Besides that, we have youth monitoring program. And in this program, actually, we are matching the adolescents with one of the volunteers that will follow up with them and address their needs. If they need to learn how to do research on some subject belong to the school projects, or maybe they have a question, how can I have in my degree in a certain type of like education, how to be something like I have, for example, if they have any challenges or they have anything they are interested of it and they need someone to guide them through. So all these volunteers actually helping them to build themselves again and to start here and to start actually like the correct way. These families, the one that we are receiving, I work with them directly and indirectly, depends about their needs. So if there is a need of the family that caseworker cannot actually address, so in this case, I will be involved with the family. If the family come to us through the Arabic Culture Center, and because I speak Arabic and my first language is Arabic, so I will be involved with the family to solve their issues directly with the family and their children. Basic things, what I'm trying to say here, supporting their children is something very important. As a mom, I came to her to St. Louis. I get resettled in 2009 in Arnold, Missouri. And I had 3 children at that time. 3 of them was in age like between, it was the oldest one 12 years old and the youngest one was 1 year old. I went through all these steps with them to face all the difficulty challenges that they had. I was always supportive to them. Now, my oldest one, she has her own business. My second child, he's in accounting and he's working. And my third child, she's in high school. So all of them, I actually put them in correct way, guide them through to make sure they're going to be successful in this community. Each family needs to understand that. Without the parents, their children will not be able to do that. So we need to educate the family. We need to educate the parents. And then from there, we can educate the children and provide them more programs that can support them. And then they can go from there. And we will see what they are capable to do. They're going to surprise us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Shatha.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, I just want to go back to what Rob was talking about before and their approach to working with that student. One of the things that inspired Revival School was reading. It was a paper by educators in Winnipeg, Canada, who were receiving refugee students in their public schools. And just noticing what Rob was saying, that a lot of students were just feeling overwhelmed, feeling detached and depressed. And they realized that a lot of the education they were receiving was deficit-based almost. It was basically starting from this point of saying, this is what you don't know, and this is what you need to. So it was kind of like focused on asking these children to jump through a lot of our hoops in terms of language and culture. And some of it was just overwhelming. And it started them off with a sense of maybe failure and frustration of just not getting it at first. So I think through studying multiple intelligences theory and just trying to apply that to the education practice there, they realized that applying that multiple intelligences theory could flip the script for these students, and where they would start with the assets that the students were bringing, all the different kinds of intelligences that they weren't being tested for, that all the strengths and the talents that they had. And then they were investing in those things first. And that empowered the students in their gifts. And then that feeling of success motivated them to tackle these more challenging areas. So that was one of the inspirations for Revival School. I just want to give a little, just talk about that for a minute for the educators. And then I think on that note, if a lot of these students, when we first started Revival School, we had this huge influx of Nepali teenagers who were like so musical, so eager to get their hands on instruments that they would, after our church service, they would run up on the stage and jump on the drums and grab a guitar. And so we just started opening the church to them on Monday nights, and and then they brought all their friends, and it was just like, sometimes you'd have like 50 to 80 kids show up where you would have 3 kids on a piano playing at the same time, things like that. But and it was chaos, but they made it their home, and I think it was effective. I know that like Rob was saying, a lot of these guys are passionate about soccer. So I know one resource is Cup of Nations. So there's a Cup of Nations soccer tournament, and I can share a link in the group chat of just, I think that will help for anybody to get involved with Cup of Nations. And they have soccer teams from all different nations that participate in the tournaments. So, but there's kind of a hub there of some good guys who can connect students to those resources. And then obviously I'm a musician, and so we just kind of started making a space for students to share their music from their home culture. And we opened this recording studio during the pandemic, and we started this fashion collaborative, really, because a lot of students were passionate about those things. So actually, the girl that I had mentioned before, we just helped her sign a contract with a modeling agency and fill out a 1099. So she's actually right at this moment at her photo shoot to get her headshots and everything. So yeah, things like that. Revival School, we took a pretty big hit during the pandemic. It's been hard for us to restart. So if anybody's interested in helping us restart, we used to have a Friday gathering like I was talking about that is sort of controlled chaos. But if you are interested in that, then I'd love to hear from you. So thanks.
Thanks. And I'm going to ask one more question. And so just as a reminder, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat, because we will have an opportunity for our panelists to answer your questions. And since we're not able, the way this is set up, we're not able to actually hear you, they do have to go into chat. So just a reminder there. And so this next question is for Rob and Sarah. So educators have an important role to play in supporting the acculturation and integration of Arabic-speaking students. What classroom and/or language support strategies are effective at fostering students' growth and well-being in the school setting? And Rob, let's go ahead and start with you.
So you guys had sent me this question ahead of time and I've been thinking about it. And what came to mind to me is it's a term that was coined by, I believe, a woman named Rudine Sims Bishop, which is the need for windows, mirrors, and I think she calls sliding glass doors. So it's basically saying that students need to see their cultural identities, their linguistic identities reflected in the school environment, reflected in curricular materials, reflected in books that they're reading. So one is to have mirrors. So are there books where characters have the same cultural background as me, or have the same religious background as me, or speak my same language? So can I relate to some of the texts that I'm being asked to read in school? So that would be a mirror experience. The window would be basically providing windows to other students to learn about the different cultures of the world, the different language groups of the world, to understand the cultural backgrounds and experiences of their classmates. So basically this is for refugees or for multilingual learners to have an experience where we're maybe reading a text where a character is from my same cultural or linguistic background is important to me because I can connect with this character. And for my classmates, it's nice that they get to learn a little bit about basically the culture or the language group that I identify with. So basically providing both mirror experiences and window experiences to other students. I think similar to that is there's something called identity texts. So it could be asking students to share their own stories. I think you want to be careful about this. Like if there's traumatic experiences and they don't feel comfortable sharing about something that happened to them, then you need to be sensitive to that and understanding about that. But if students are ready to talk about their experience or their journey in coming to the United States, or if they even just want to share about their own home country or cultural practices, again, having an open, educators having a sort of an open mind of, I want to create meaningful assignments and meaningful things for you to do to use your English for reasons that are meaningful for you. So if you would like to, I can help you write about your own identity or your own culture or your journey to the United States, or maybe there's a way for you to visually share this. So I think the two big ideas here are having school environments and curriculum materials and books that provide mirror experiences for students where they're seeing themselves represented in the school and in the curricular resources. And then second, if students are feeling ready and want to, providing opportunities for them to share about their own cultural backgrounds, language backgrounds, and maybe even their journey to the United States. So I guess those would be my thoughts there. Sarah.
And real quick, Sarah, before you go, and Sarah Sims and Allie have fixed the chat, so you should be able to submit your questions now. I apologize that the chat was disabled as we were telling you to put questions in chat. Anyway, thank you. Sarah.
I'd like to add to what Rob said. For educators especially, I think that everything he said is good to keep in mind, with the addition of the idea that as you are trying to encourage the sharing, and I like the mirroring idea too in class, is to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's not othering. And I think I think we've kind of moved away from this idea of, okay, you're from Ghana, tell us about what they eat there, what they do there. And I think most educators have an idea that, putting kids on the spot like that isn't the most ideal way of going about kind of, bringing out these stories and these different, cultural bits that we want to share with each other. But I think a good way to de-emphasize differences is to kind of bring a prompt, not necessarily a prompt but itself, but just kind of set class up in a way so that everybody can share their experiences, not just, that one kid from that one country. And so this just came to mind, but I'm an Arabic teacher, and so last year I had I was bringing shawarma into class to share with the students, because not a lot of students are familiar with Arab food if you're not Arab. And so I was trying to explain to them, I hadn't thought about this in advance. I was trying to explain to them what shawarma was verbally, and I wasn't doing a very good job. And so kids were like, is this a sandwich? What is going on? So then I pulled up a picture, and that was kind of the prompt I needed, because immediately kids from other countries, or kids even from this, from everywhere, were relating it to foods that they were familiar with. So a shawarma looks like a burrito. So that came up a lot. It's kind of a wrap. It's a sandwich. So all of these different ideas came up, and it was an organic way in which kids that normally don't participate in class because of the language barrier, or because they don't feel comfortable in this culture with which they're not very familiar yet, were speaking up and sharing, again, organically, bits of what they're familiar with. And I liked that, because it wasn't, tell us about your story, tell us about your story, and let's do a compare and contrast, which, is great. But this was more organic, and it was more of less of me as a teacher prompting them, but more of them coming together and sharing all these things, which I think is, for me as a teacher, has been one of the most difficult things. Is I have a lot of control, obviously, of my interactions with students, but what I would like to see is students who have come here from different countries or different cultures interact more with their peers who are from different cultural backgrounds. And that, as an adult, is very hard to create that environment when I'm not a peer, right? So I can have conversations with kids, but I can't encourage kids as much to come together. So one of my suggestions has been, and in addition to creating these classroom activities in which kids can share and become more familiar with each other, I think encouraging play amongst all ages of students is really important. So obviously that's easier in elementary schools, but even I'm a high school teacher. I have opened up my room several times a week during lunch for students to come. And often those students are ones who don't feel familiar or don't feel comfortable in the cafeteria setting, right? With kids that they don't know, and, social interactions and languages that they're not familiar with. So they'll come up and they'll draw or color or play card games, things that don't involve or don't require them using English, but which they can interact with their peers and start to build those connections and relationships in a way that feels comfortable and familiar with them. So I would encourage that as maybe the biggest thing that adults or educators can do, is create spaces in which students can start to interact in ways that they feel comfortable with. And often that involves games or something that involves really low speaking and simple explanation activities that everyone can participate in together.
Sarah, that was great. Thank you for sharing that and for clarifying and expanding on my point.
Thank you both. So we do have a question from a participant, and I'm going to throw it out to all of you. And so would you please describe how a deaf refugee from Arabic background can navigate school systems? So they're wanting to know, is there Arabic sign language? What supports are in place in that situation?
I can partially answer some. So there definitely are different types of sign language. I don't know personally if there's an Arabic sign language. I know we have American Sign Language. I know because there's a distinction between American Sign Language and other sign languages. There are others. I'm not sure if there's one for Arabic. I imagine the student would be what we call dually identified. So both needing language support and probably some special education support. So hopefully the school district would, so basically what we say for our English learners, our multilingual learners, is that they're entitled for any services for which they qualify. So I would hope that the district would not only be providing perhaps a para or a special education teacher to help with the aspect of having hearing loss, but also get to work with an ELD specialist as far as providing language support. I'm not sure if there's another panelist who maybe is more familiar if there is an Arabic sign language, or if we have resources in the region to help a student like that.
I think that was a really good answer, Rob. I know there are several different variations of Arabic Sign Language, different regions, just like here, different regions, different countries have different sign languages, which makes me think that maybe that's not necessarily the best route to go in terms of getting them acclimated into the school and into the culture. I mean, I think it's really important, obviously, to learn the language from where you're from, but because of the different variations, I would say that what Rob said, going with supports that the school has to offer might be the best route.
Hey, thank you. And are there other questions from our panelists, or not from our panelists, from our participants?
Trish, I might chime in. Michael mentioned something really important, and he reminded me of something, and others sort of touched on this, but I find a really important thing that's missing in teacher education is sort of talking about asset-based perspective versus deficit perspective. So when we have a student like Michael's describing, who is learning English as the fourth language, so this is borrowing a term from a woman named Juliana Urtube, who was a National Teacher of the Year in 2021. But basically saying, like, our terminology for these students is just to call them an English learner. And that's really not recognizing what they're bringing to our schools, right? So if you're not just an English learner, you're what Juliana Urtube would call linguistically gifted, right? So you're actually talking about a student who has lots of linguistic talents, is very intelligent. And when we don't have terminology that's asset-based, and we sort of don't really help teachers to first look for what is a child bringing to the classroom versus what is the child maybe lacking or needing more support in, I think it's a natural thing to sort of immediately look at what is a student lacking and what does a student need. But I think it's super important, especially with refugee students, especially with multilingual learners, to first talk about what are the skills that the students bringing, what are their interests, what are their talents, and then always recognize them as the whole child and trying to provide opportunities to tap into those.
Thanks, Rob. And in our last few minutes, I want to give others an opportunity to sort of one last message that you'd like to share about supporting Arabic speaking adolescents in our schools. Sarah, can we start with you?
Yes, a lot of things too. Now, what Rob said actually triggered a thought for me, which is that I like the idea of thinking about students in terms of what they can bring to the classroom. And so just to add on some suggestions to how to kind of facilitate that, and in addition to facilitating peer relationships, is things that I've done. And I think this could be done in the classroom or, in a setting in which Michael is, any type of, you're working with children and trying to bring them together and build relationships. Music, so soccer is a big one. Music is something that brings kids together. I often ask kids to give me one or two of their top school appropriate songs, and then we make a playlist. And if we're doing an activity, we play it in the background. And then I'll have kids come up to me and ask for names of specific songs, and that leads to conversations between themselves. We often do a daily or a weekly conversation starter. So something like, who is the most important person to you? Which, somebody who is not strong in English can still often answer that question. And often that answer is really similar amongst people from different cultures and different backgrounds. And so that's another way of bringing, people together and showing them in a more subtle way that we have more similarities, than differences. Or what is one thing you can eat for the rest of your life? And food is always something kids are really interested in and get excited about, especially if you can bring it to them for them to actually eat. But talking about it, looking at pictures is the next best thing. There's just some ideas that I've used that have been really successful in the past.
Thank you. Shatha? Any last thoughts about supporting Arabic speaking adolescents?
Yeah, actually, after I heard all these stories, it's a wonderful stories to hear, and how much the families with their children was succeeded in this new country for them. You know, being in a different country, speaking a different language is something very hard for the family and their children together. I would like to share my personal story about my youngest child. When I came to her, she was 1 year old. So basically, she attended school here in the United States. And the English language was the only language that was familiar for her. At home, we speak Arabic, but she wasn't able to catch up with us. So her Arabic was very basic, to the point she cannot communicate with us in Arabic. It was very important for me to make her understand how much important to know different languages. So what happened with my youngest one, it was the opposite. It was how to help her and encourage her to learn Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted her to learn Arabic for different reasons. First of all, to know a different language is something very wonderful. It's not anyone can do it. So we'll open for her a different field and a different type of level of education, and opening her mind to a different type of people who's living out of United States in general, who speak different languages and dealing with the things maybe a little bit differently. And besides all that is our language, and I would like my children to speak it. It wasn't making any sense to her why she wants to speak another language. She always told me, my friends speak Arab, my friends speak English. I go to school, speak English. My neighbors speak English. There is no point for me to speak a different language. So my challenges was with her how to make her understand how much important to learn Arabic. So when she grew up and she became in 3rd grade, I was trying to encourage her to learn basic Arabic, and she didn't want to cooperate with me. I went in behalf of her to her teacher, and I told her, the teacher, that this is what I have with my daughter, and I need your support. She asked me like any idea if I have. I told her, I would like you to give my daughter 5 minutes like in any day of the week that you can choose, just to speak with her classroom, that there is other language out of this, the small world they are in. And there is a different traditions, different cultures, people coming from different backgrounds. So what happened, actually, she was very cooperative person, and she was very supportive. And this, like until of today, I'm very thankful of her support. Because of her, my daughter learned Arabic. So she gave me an opportunity, or she gave to my daughter an opportunity to speak in Arabic 10 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday of the week to the classroom. And she was interpreting herself as an Arabic speaker who come from a different country, speaking a different language and have a different background. And it was a good education for all the students. At the same time, it was a good education for my daughter, that it makes sense to her why it's important to know different languages. So from there, she started learning Arabic, and she found it very interested. Now, today, she's 18 years old. She's a senior year, and she's very appreciative that I did that. She didn't know at that time, but when she grew up, she had that agreement with me. She told me one time, Mom, I will tell you a secret, but I would like you also to tell me a secret. So I told her what I did, how I went on behalf of her, and I spoke to her teacher. She said, oh my goodness, I never think about it. And I didn't know that you did this on behalf of me. I'm like, yeah, because of that, now you speak Arabic. So teachers is very important in our children's life. They make change. They're capable to guide them through. as much as the parents will do for their children, teachers, it's number one in our children's life. I very appreciate for my daughter teacher, what she did and what made my daughter to go through, because this is what she is right now, as of today. She knows how to speak Arabic and English in both different languages. She understands completely 100%. So of course, she needs more, but this is the way that she started. And today, she's completely a different person. If I didn't do what I did years ago, she will not be the same person today.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That is absolutely wonderful. And Michael, we've run out of time. Do you have a 10-second last thought? Sorry.
No problem. I wanted to echo what Sarah had said earlier about just the need for, friendships, just genuine friendships where safe spaces for these students to process. That's just really, really important. So that's all.
All right. And before I turn it over to Allie, I want to personally thank you all for coming and talking with us today. That I learned a lot, and I'm sure that our listeners did as well. Allie?
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us for the 4th session of the Salama webinar series. As a reminder, we'll be posting a recording of this program on the Brown Schools Open Classroom YouTube channel. You can also find past sessions from the Salama webinar series, as well as over 200 open classroom webinars on other social work and public health topics. So have a great rest of your day, and we hope we'll see you at a future session.